Hi, welcome back. So I've gone ahead and just put a few of these kind of buttons in here, the things that would be clinching the fabric together, and this gives a very nice effect, I think. So there it is. On a few test renders I've done, the fabric is actually very smooth and just exactly the way I would want it. Now you can obviously use this technique to make any sort of messy pattern that you want. You could have squares or more diamonds. In our case, we've gone for this sort of triangular pattern. And you can now clearly see the differences between the back of the duvet cover and the front. I've gone ahead and just exaggerated the materials slightly. So in this part I want to look at making those cushions. So I'm going to need some pillows in here, and in order to do that I'm going to need to be able to lay them on top of this duvet. So as we did for the sheet underneath, I'm going to duplicate this. Okay, and then just take the duplicated object and I'll hide one. So let's go and Control H this, grab this duplicate, and I'm going to reduce the mesh. So just mesh reduce, and this will take it a few seconds. So here is our Marvelous Designer. Okay, and mine's popped back up with this reduced mesh, so I'm going to just reduce it again. Okay, so I actually just reduced that a couple of times. It's fairly low polyish now. So I can now take this into Marvelous Designer and use it as a proxy. I'll also need this mattress and this bed frame. And in fact, we'll just hide the main bed frame and use the proxy one. Okay, so let's take this mattress, this bed frame, and this reduced mesh sheet, duvet, sorry, and let's export selection. And I'll call this MD bed 4 MD. In fact, I'll call that bed for Marvelous Designer. Alright, and now back into Marvelous Designer, and I'm going to just save this garment out, which in Marvelous Designer is just File, Save as Garment. So I've got mine here, quick save. Alright, and now I can load in my other avatar objects. So File, Import, OBJ, and in this case this is bed for Marvelous Designer. These centimeters once more. Okay, why is that frozen up? Alright, there we go. It's just taken it a little while to import. So that's just new garment. Alright, and there is our bed. If we wanted to see a wireframe of that, we can come down here and go like so. So, this is a bit of a heavier object than we've used in the past, but that shouldn't really be too much of an issue. It's not that high poly. And I'm going to start out by just making some very simple pillows. So I cleared the previous garment by going to File, New Garment, of course. And now I'm going to just draw, so I want 3 to go along the back of the bed. So that should be about the right size. Let's Control C and V this. Okay, let's hit the Synchronize Across button. And I'm going to want a front and a back on these like I did with the previous duvet cover. So I'm going to spin this 180. Like so, and I'm just going to push it together, and then as we did with the duvet cover, we're going to sew these together. So this top edge and this top edge. Let's go to our sewing tool, and again we've got that twisted seam on there, so let's just, there we go, and we need this edge to this edge. Haha, 50-50 chance to get it right there. Of course, went wrong. So that will be this edge to this edge, and this edge to this edge. Okay, so that's sewed our pillow together. I mean, this will be a pretty simple operation. Let's just grab both of these. Let's go to the selection tool and spin it up, and let's get it into a reasonable position here on the bed. I said Marvelous Designer viewport, perhaps not the the best viewport I've ever worked with, but alright, so that seems about the right position. Now we know we're going to want to fill these with some air or stuffing. So I'm going to put this to 40. I'm going to go to the pressure and put it on maybe 6, because we'll want these to be substantially poofier than our duvet was. Okay, and that looks pretty much like a pillow. It's not very big. You know, after it poofs up and has fallen down, it just doesn't really seem big enough to me. Let's have another look. Let's simulate that so it falls down a bit better, like so. No, I think I'll go with a size bigger. It's nice to simulate at this very low particle distance because of that. So let's go bigger this way, but also this way. Alright, now let's just make sure that this is not bisecting anything. And it isn't. Let's come down. And that seems a more reasonable size. Let's just get it. No, that's not gonna go placed nicely. So what I'm going to try is to get this kind of propped up a little bit more. And we've got a bit of bisection going on there. There we go. Okay, so we can stop the simulation. We can pull it up and give it a helping hand. And I really don't want to start a simulation with bisecting geometry. It's really not a good idea. There we go. Okay, so that's gone down, but it's a bit saggy, so we can try increasing the pressure. Let's increase it quite a lot. Alright, that seems a bit better, a bit more as I would want it. Okay. And that's set it up very neatly. Alright, so I'm going to decrease the pressure a bit to add some wrinkles in. And make sure it doesn't fall too much. And also this has the quite stiff default material on it, which we don't want. So let's go to fabric and click add, and we'll call this one pillow, and I will use the same one for the front and back. Now you can do what we did with the duvet and use different materials for the front and back, especially if in Maya you want to texture those differently later, but for me just the standard cotton fabric is going to be fine. So I'm going to set to the cotton preset, and I'm just going to click drag this onto my pillow, and I'll probably change the color of it, just it helps you know, me remember that it's got a different material assigned to it. So let's click the pillow material here, come in and just, there we go, nothing too hideous, just something to differentiate it for me. And now it's got the cotton material on it, let's simulate again. Okay, so it got a few more folds, and what we need now is to duplicate this object. So let's come along here, select both of these, Control C, Control V, and Control V again, and that will actually give me 3 pillows. So now I can come in and place them all along the back of the bed here. Whoops, let's grab both of those. Okay, so let's just get these, and let's lie that one down a bit more. Up you come, and let's hit simulate. Alright, so you can see my 3 pillows have interacted with each other, which is rather nice. Now what I want to do is talk about the folds here, because these are not good at the moment. So let's go up to the scene, and we'll just take the seams. So these are all the seams that have been sewed together for these pillows. I'm going to put the fold angle to 240 degrees, and the fold strength up quite high. So you won't really see it at this particle distance, but these folds should then become more pronounced. You see they've gone inwards there, giving us a definite seam. If we were to put the fold angle, say, down to 0, you'll see, in fact, before I show you this, I'm really going to have to increase or decrease the particle distance. So let's go to 20. Okay, there we go. Let's simulate for a bit. And now you'll see that my pillows drop a little bit because of the nearer particle distance. They can get sort of much more detail onto themselves. Okay, but let's look at these seams. See, now they seem to be folded slightly inwards. Okay, so if I change that back now on these seam lines to 240, we should now get a more pronounced seam if I let it simulate for a little while. So you see that seam pull in there? Okay, because I want to see those seams on the final render. So as you can see now, with this higher particle distance, they're quite clear for the seam. So that seems like we have 3 pillows on there, no problem at all. Okay, now you might want to come in and rearrange a bit. This middle one, for instance, maybe it needs a slight correction. Let's just move it like so. And again, this is personal preference. I mean, this is going to depend on how you want your pillows to show up in your scene. I just want your sort of standard chuck 3 pillows on the bed on the way out the house look, so this will be fine for me. I'll just give that one a bit of a wallop, so it sort of creases up a bit more. And you know, you can chuck them about a bit, get a more messy look depending on how you like it. But this, for me, this looks pretty good. Now I might go down to a particle distance that's slightly lower, so I might go down to 15 on all of these, just to simulate out the last few frames. Just help to add a few more detailed wrinkles and smooth out the wrinkles we've already got. So I'm going to bring this back into Maya now, and we're going to look at making the very simple curtains that we put in on this bed. So let's just simulate that out, and I'm just going to save this garment. So save garment, I'll call it bed pillow. Okay, good enough. Let's export. And let's bring that into Maya. Now, I don't want the avatar shape, of course, and in this case, I'm going to save out multiple objects. That way, I'd be able to texture all 3 different pillows a different color should I want to, and I'll show you now when we bring that into Maya what that does. So let's just import. And let's see, pillow, there we go. Alright, so there's our pillows, and if you'll see now, they all look like one object, but I will be able to go to mesh separate, and they'll come in as separate front and back objects, each one its own. Okay, I don't actually need that at this minute, so I'm just going to undo that. But if you do need that functionality, so you know, if you did need to come in and give these pillows different patterns and whatnot, then you can export from Marvelous Designer as multiple objects. Alright, so this for me, I'm just going to assign a Lambert to it. Let's make that Lambert a light one. There we go. So there's my bed and there's my pillows. And now I want to get on with making the curtains. Alright, so once again, I'm going to need an avatar. So I'm probably not going to need these pillows, because the cloth's going to come down. It's probably not going to intersect there, and as I say, the less geometry I have on my avatars, the better. So that's the pillows in. Let's go back to Marvelous Designer and take a look at the actual curtains. So Another thing I can do is, instead of bringing these pillows back in as an object or an avatar in case the curtains would hit them, I can actually just select all of them here and hit freeze. They'll go a blue color. This means that objects can interact with them now, but they won't actually do anything when I hit simulate. Okay, so there is always the question of building the bed up in layers, and instead of importing it back in as objects, just freezing. I prefer to export, reduce the geometry and bring it back in. I think it's more flexible and it works better as well. But in a pinch, just freeze this here. And now this will be quite simple to make these curtains. So let's move these out of the way. Okay, sorry, my system froze up, but as I was saying, we're going to need a long, thin curtain here. So let's just grab this box and come up and draw something about the approximate length. So what we need is something that's going to go all the way down this side, across the top, and all the way down here. So I'll just use the selection tool here and spin it around this way, and once around this way. Okay, so I'm just going to get it so it's draped nicely, and we need to get that about central. And that's probably not wide enough. We're going to scrunch this up, so we want a lot of detail there. So let's make that a bit wider. There we go. Make sure, once again, it's not bisecting anything. Okay, and turn the particle distance to 40 just for our test, and let's see how well that drapes over. And I don't think we're quite going to be long enough here, folks. We'll want the curtain to sort of nicely hit the floor. So we are definitely not long enough. Okay, let's have another quick look. I mean, the nice thing about this is very interactive. You're not waiting around for 5 hours for your simulation to complete, so it makes it really quite a pleasure to use compared to some other systems. Alright, this one is too long, and this one is not quite long enough, so there's a simple fix for that. We'll just move it this way slightly. Okay, and there we go. Perfect. I just had a little pause there. Now you'll see we're getting a bit of bisection between this cloth and our object here. That's fine. We won't get that if we simulate at better quality. So let's click this off. Now we know this is in the right position. We can come in and we can just move this back a little bit just to stop it kind of getting caught on here. Alright, and I'm going to put it to a distance of 20 for this one right from the start. I'm also going to assign our pillow material to it, just because I want that to drape as cotton, and I'm going to hit simulate. So I'll actually pause for this at a particle distance of 20. This will take maybe a minute, maybe two. Okay, so that's draped down nicely, and what we need to do now is bring it together so it's kind of nice pleats in it all the way down. Now the way I'm going to do that is by putting a line across here and one across here, and then making that elastic so it draws this together. The problem I'm going to run into is when I do that, it's going to draw it from both sides at once, so my curtain is going to end up hanging here, and I want it to be hanging right at the end of the bed. So we looked at pins briefly, and I'm just going to select the pin tool now. I'm just going to pin this one here like so it can't move, and then I'm going to pin this one here also so it can't move. This way, when the elastic happens, it'll have to be drawn this way because we've got a fixed point here. And it also gives me two handy guidelines for exactly where I need to put my elastic. So grab an internal polygonal line and click once, shift to put a straight line in, and then double click to end the line. There we go. And same here, click once, shift, double click. Okay, that puts two lines in that we can now say are going to be elastic. So let's come in here, and because it's a pain in the backside to try and select things in this view here, let's just go to the scene and select these two 2D shapes and turn the elastic on. Okay, let's go to simulate, and we should start seeing some elasticity happen as we are. Okay, it's not a lot, but it's definitely coming. Because our strength is really low and our ratio is quite high, we could obviously just let this simulate out a bit. And unfortunately, this is going to take, maybe a minute or two each time we do this. So I'm going to try and do it quickly, but I suggest you give each step some time to simulate. So let's move this down to 60 and go again. And you'll see it start to come more and more together. You'll start to see the pleats come in here. Okay, it's pulling towards this point now. Okay, and then I can just turn the strength up to say maybe 10 and keep simulating. And now you see it happen a lot quicker, maybe too quick in this case, but it should actually be fine. There we go. And you'll see even at quite a high resolution, simulation resolution, Marvelous Designer is still pretty nippy. Okay, let's just check that out, make sure we're all right here. And it looks like this might need a helping hand. It's kind of, no, it's actually going to do it itself. So, sometimes a bit of fabric will get stuck where you don't want it to, so you might have to give it a yank, which again is a very nice interactive feature of MD. Okay, I don't like the way this is pluming out, but I'm sure it will settle down. So I'm just going to pause and give this chance to settle. Okay, so I've just given that time for the simulation to settle down. It's looking pretty good. All I need to do now is, and I did take the ratio down to 45. You can go even lower if you like, if you want more pleats in here. But the last step is just to remove these pins, because they can cause kind of unnatural creases. And after you've done that, you want to simulate out a few steps. Okay, you can just see that unbunching from up there. Alright, so that's basically curtain number 1 done. And to get curtain number 2, I'm just going to copy and paste again. Okay, here we go. Because I don't want to reset this one, and this is important, if you hit reset all patterns now, obviously you'll have to simulate this all over again. So click it and just click freeze, as we did with the pillows. Then when we reset, it won't simulate. So now I can reset the pattern, which, because it's a copy and paste, will forget everything it learnt before. So let's just spin this one way and backwards, please, and get those points lined up properly. There we go. And then just flip it like so. Okay, so we're just going to get this into position, same way we did for the other one. We're also going to pin it, but this time we'll pin it at the back. Let's just make sure our curtains will stay at the front and back of our bed and not end up with the elasticity pulling the material around somewhere in the middle. So, we need this to be fairly well on the proxy object here, on the avatar, as Marvelous Designer calls it. Okay, so let's just zoom in there, make sure our placement is okay. It's fine. So go to the pin and it's just, whoops. And let me just undo that. Let's just pin this one here, like so. And pin this one here. And in fact, has that bisected? Yes, it has. Which means I'll now have to come in, remove this pin, go back to the movement tool, and just move it up a little bit. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. Pin there. And pin there. Okay. So, because we copied and pasted this will still have the values on these 2D shapes that the old one did. So we don't want that, of course. So let's put the strength to 1 and the ratio to 80 for both of those. Otherwise it will get that giant shock and you'll get some very unpredictable results trying to simulate too much all at the same time. In fact, until it's draped, I'm going to turn the elastic off entirely. So let's just let it drape. And I'll be pausing and so you'll see mine go immediately, but it will take about a minute or two. Okay, so my simulation here is ongoing, and as you can see, I've just draped the fabric without the elastic turned on these. Now I'm going to do exactly what we did the last time, which is just turn the elastic on and make sure it's at a very low strength and very high ratio. So I'll just tick here and you'll start to see this move inwards. Okay, as you can see, it start to crease there. So I'll now just continue to do what I did last time, what we did last time, which is, keep lowering the ratio until it's around 60, and then up the strength a little bit, and just gently pull this curtain together so we get this nice kind of folded pattern. Okay, so I just, decreased the ratio and the strength on this a little bit, and I'll show you the final settings. It ended up with a strength of 10, a ratio of 45, and I got like so. Now you can keep simulating and pulling it about a bit until you get it exactly as you like, but what I'm going to do is just remove these pins, because we no longer need it pinned backwards, and you'll see that it's slightly distorted up there, so you should just simulate out a couple of frames to let that snap back. There we go. Okay, and that'll just smooth out over sort of 30 seconds or so. And that'll be enough. You might want to give it a few more secs. Alright, now let's get this back into Maya. So let's go File, Export, OBJ, and let's call this bed curtain from MD. Okay, centimeters again, and again I'm going to use multiple objects. I don't need the avatar. Okay, and what I'm seeing here is because I've got these frozen pillows that I already have in Maya, then I don't need those. So I can work out which patterns these are. They're patterns 2419 and 2319. So I don't need any of these. These are the pillows, and obviously we don't want them twice. So that'll do for me. Okay. All right, let's pop into Maya and import our curtains. So, bed curtain from Marvelous Designer, import. And there we go. It's got those terrible Marvelous Designer materials on it. So let's just change that for something else. Assign existing materials, just give it Lambert 5. Alright, and let's hide the proxy object and bring back the normal object so we can get our normal bed. Alright, so there we go. There's our bed pretty much made up. We've obviously got here and why do we have that here? Okay, let's bring back the normal duvet. There we go. I thought that was looking a bit rough. So there is our bed with our 3 pillows, our duvet, and our curtains. So that was pretty simple, really. In the next part, we'll look at making the curtains for this back window, and we're going to do some quite complicated drapery for that. And then we'll look at making the curtains for this, where I'm going to make some simple curtains with some curtain ties at the top to show you something else with Marvelous Designer. We'll then dive into couch covers, which again use a slightly different technique. So I hope you found this somewhat interesting, and I will see you again in the next part. Thanks for watching.